Good to go. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Come along. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to start from
Let's gather right there in the center of the lobby there. Eventually he made his way to Los Angeles here, and in 1918 opened his first theater in Los Angeles. That was the $1 Million Theater. That was in a Spanish colonial revival style. That was followed by the Metropolitan Theater, which was Italian. They tore that down in 1960. And then came the Egyptian Theater, which is still right down the street. The Egyptian Theater opened in 1922. It was the location of the world's first red carpet movie premiere in Hollywood. A movie called Robin Hood with Douglas Fairbanks. And then Sid Grauman took a trip to China, and he was very influenced by what he saw, the art and the architecture of old China. He came back to this country, decided to create a Chinese theater. That's how this came to be. That's why you'll see that the lobby is meant to look like a Chinese garden. So the ceiling up there, it's meant to look like a sky. These red lights here hanging down, these are actually incense burners. They'd be pouring out sandalwood incense in 1927. The murals on the wall, those murals are hand-painted by a man named Qi Lu, who was a Chinese-American actor and artist. So in 1927, if you were to walk through the doors, you would feel like you were walking into a Chinese garden, because the Sid Grauman was as important, the patron feel was carried away with the theater itself, as by the movie being shown. And as they were building the theater back in 1927, and the cement was wet outside, they had an actress named Norma Talmadge walk into the wet cement outside there, left a footprint. Sid Grauman saw that, and that's what began the whole tradition of the handed footprints. So it begins with the accidental footprints of Norma Talmadge back in 1927. Since that time, it's grown to more than 300 people. Most recently, an actor named Michael Madsen, Patrick Stewart from Star Trek, a boxer named Canelo Alvarez, Keanu Reeves, Kevin Hart, and Billy Crystal. They're all chosen to go out there by the owners of the theater, based on their merits in the film industry, or the fact that they're broken a box office record of some kind. And there is room out there for 75 to 100 more. After that, they'll put them on the walls or indoors. But they have to make them smaller now to fit more in. Right over this way here. Now this, the Star Wars things that are in here, the Star Wars things are all replicas. They're mostly fan-created things. But this one over here, this is actually taken from the molds of the original costumes, so that's more than the threshold of a recreation there. Back in 1977, the first Star Wars movie did premiere here. Played here for a year and a half, all the way to 1978. There were so many people through here to see the movie at the time, they actually wore out the carpet that they put down here in 1927. That's not the original carpet there. And even today, whenever they open a Star Wars movie here, fans of Star Wars, they sleep out there on the concrete for a week in advance to be the first ones to see the movie. So they, fans will put these things on display here. But this one here, so this is not a reproduction costume, that's a real costume right there. That's Gone with the Wind from 1939. It's Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. In this movie, it did not premiere here. This one actually premiered in Atlanta, Georgia. The movie was filmed where it takes place. But when you adjust the numbers for inflation, that's the most financially successful movie ever made. More than Avatar, Harry Potter, Titanic, or anything of the sort. And Vivian Leigh does not have a handprint in the cement out there, but her co-star Clark Gable does. It was done in 1937, the premiere of a movie called Love on the Run. And his actually has a brass frame around it because it was rededicated back in 1976. And they made a movie about Clark Gable called Gable and Lombard. The old projector over there, that's from the 1950s and 60s. That's from the days when they would run movies on 35mm reels of film, and you press the button to change between the reels. Now they don't have to do that anymore. Since the year 1999 upstairs, they've had digital projection. At that point in time, they were still working off the old film reels, and every 20 minutes or so, the projectionist would press a button to advance the movie. Over on this side here, again, this is taken from the mold's original costume, so it's pretty much an exact replica. Back in 1977, they actually did have a handprint ceremony outside for Darth Vader, C-3PO, and R2-D2. People in the costumes of those characters actually did their handprints in the cement outside. It was followed by, in 1984, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. This was the premiere of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And then in 1992, Harrison Ford for the premiere of Patriot Games. So all the Star Wars-related people, they're all in the same general area out there. But this one over here, this is a real costume. This is Marilyn Monroe. It's a movie called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes back in 1953. It's actually made of gold lame stretch fabric, so it will stretch out to fit the person wearing it. Marilyn Monroe would be exactly form-fitting. And she too, she did the handprints in the cement outside for the premiere of this movie back in 1953. She actually put her earring into the wet cement to dot the I of the Marilyn. It's still in the cement out there for only many years. The bottom half of the earring is still there, the top half has been broken off. But that's the most famous one and the most visited one out there. And the handprints themselves, they're blackened out from so many people putting their hands in there over many years. And the cement itself is tinted blonde for the movie, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And over there, that's The Wizard of Oz. That's a very famous movie that premiered here back in 1939. This is Judy Garland as Dorothy. This one, for the premiere of this one, they rolled out not a red carpet, they rolled out a yellow carpet for it instead. Many of the small actors who played the Munchkins were here in their costumes mixing among the stars. And Judy Garland here, she was 16 years old, did her handprints in the cement outside back in 1939 as well, for the premiere of a movie called Babes in Arms. She actually got cement that dried under the fingernails, and they had to chip all of her fingernails off after that. And for the premiere of The Wizard of Oz, half of the outside out there was decorated to look like Kansas. The other half was decorated to look like the Emerald City of Oz. And right down here, okay, just come right down here. Take a seat up there where you like there.
Take a seat out here.
Yeah, take a seat up there anywhere you like.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, I guess. Just take a seat there wherever you want up there. Well, take a seat up there wherever you like.
Just sent me the
So right now in here, there are 932 seats, but it opened with 2,058 seats. The seats would have gone much further back at one time because the lobby was smaller and the screen was smaller, and originally everything was sloped on one level. But with the installation of the IMAX here, 2013, the expansion of the lobby in 2001, the seating count has been reduced down by about half. Now they're going to show something on the screen here for a few minutes. It'll tell you more about the theater, how the entrance got started, and you'll see Sid Grauman himself.
Hollywood, land of magic, glamour, and make-believe. Home to the studio dream factories. Since the motion picture industry first became the preeminent source of American entertainment in the early 1920s, the Hollywood community has held a mythical spot in the imagination of movie lovers everywhere. Perhaps no place within that community epitomizes Hollywood and all it represents more than the Chinese theater. With its ornamental facade and courtyard of famous hand and footprints, the TCL Chinese Theater is the most visited site in all of Hollywood, attracting an average of 5 million visitors each year. Hi, I'm Ben Mankiewicz, host of Turner Classic Movies, and I'm going to be your guide for this look at one of the most famous movie palaces in the world. In addition to movies, the theater has also played host to theatrical premieres and assorted red carpet events over the years, including 3 Academy Award ceremonies and most recently the AFI Fest, as well as the annual TCM Classic Film Festival. You're probably wondering how this magnificent movie palace came into being. The Chinese theater was the brainchild of showman Sid Grauman, a show business veteran who began his career in theatrical exhibition in San Francisco, managing several theaters for motion pictures and vaudeville acts. After losing 2 theaters in the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, Grauman relocated to Los Angeles, where he built 2 movie palaces: the $1 Million Theater in downtown LA and the Egyptian Theater on Hollywood Boulevard, currently home to the American Cinematheque. For his 3rd and final venture, Grauman partnered with United Artists founders Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and Charlie Chaplin as co-investors in this lavish movie palace. Construction on the Chinese Theater began in January 1926 and took nearly a year and a half to complete. The theater had its official opening on the evening of May 18, 1927, with the world premiere of Cecil B. DeMille's epic The King of Kings. Patrons were treated to a live stage show called Glories of the Scriptures, designed by Grauman himself. Plus, there were appearances by nearly every major star in Hollywood, not to mention the film itself, which was accompanied by a Wurlitzer organ and a 65-piece orchestra. Grauman spared no expense in making the Chinese the grandest showplace in Hollywood. At a cost of nearly $1.5 million, roughly equivalent to $30 million today, the theater boasted a one-level seating capacity of 2,058 and a Wurlitzer pipe organ with sound emanating from the auditorium ceiling. Patrons were also treated to extravagant architectural details imported from China. Those two lions in front of the theater are from the Ming Dynasty. The lobby is adorned with original works of sculpture by local Chinese artists. And those colorful murals in the lobby were created by artist and actor Key Luke, best known for his role as #1 son in the Charlie Chan films of the 1930s. Probably the most famous aspect of the Chinese is its forecourt, filled with the hand and footprints of stars from the silent era to the present. You might be wondering how this first started. Well, legend has it that Sid Grauman was escorting stars Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and Norma Talmadge from the Roosevelt Hotel across the street to check out progress on the theater's construction when Miss Talmadge accidentally stepped into a slab of wet cement. Well, Grauman, never one to miss an opportunity for publicity, seized the moment, getting Talmadge, Fairbanks, and Pickford to make their imprints and sign their names in the wet concrete. And so a tradition was born. Through the years, some 200 stars have made their imprints in the courtyard, along with a few interesting variations, such as John Wayne's fists and Harold Lloyd's glasses. And more recently, Jackie Chan's bare feet and Mel Brooks's 6-finger handprint. Handprints of movie legends go from Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, and Betty Davis, to Clint Eastwood, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Jennifer Aniston. How well do your hands and feet size up with those of your favorite star?
Oh, hello, Mr. Grauman.
You were marvelous tonight. Never more glamorous.
Thank you.
One of the greatest performances I've ever seen at the Chinese theater.
Thank you, Sid.
You know, I've reserved a slab of concrete. May I have your footprints?
Certainly she'll do that.
Thank you, Mr.
That's
Grauman.
wonderful. And remember, when you take your feet out of that wet concrete, keep them on solid ground, where they have always been.
She'll do that too, Sid, and I'll send you a bill for the shoot.
Classic film fans might like to know the cement imprints aren't the only items of interest in the forecourt. Beneath actress Greer Garson's cement block lies a time capsule containing a 35mm print of her Oscar-winning film Mrs. Miniver, as well as a copy of the original screenplay for the picture. It still lies there today, undisturbed, since 1942. Movies weren't the only form of entertainment offered at the Chinese. Sid Grauman was famous for his lavish prologues. Those were live staged productions performed before a film. The prologues were always designed with a theme relating to the picture. Many Hollywood hopefuls got their starts as performers in the prologues, including a young Myrna Loy, who would later find fame as William Fowle's wisecracking wife in the popular Thin Man movies. Over the years, the Chinese has played host to numerous gala premieres and some of Hollywood's biggest films. Howard Hughes hosted the opening of his World War I epic, Hell's Angels, here in 1930. King Kong first climbed the Empire State Building of the Chinese in 1933. Judy Garland made her first journey down the Yellow Brick Road when The Wizard of Oz had its Hollywood premiere in 1939. And Star Wars ran for more than a year here, starting in 1977. Recent films that have made their premiere at the Chinese include Gravity, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, and Godzilla. The Chinese theater itself has made numerous appearances in films, including the original 1937 A Star is Born, Singin' in the Rain, The Legend of Lila Claire, starring recent handprint participant Kim Novak, plus Forrest Gump with Tom Hanks, Iron Man 3 with Robert Downey Jr., and perhaps the most infamous, Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles.
How did he do such fantastic stunts with such little feet?
As technical advances in filmmaking were introduced, the Chinese has always been ready to meet the challenge. The first sound film to play here was White Shadows in the South Seas in 1928. In the 1950s, the Chinese offered its patrons the full spectrum of 6-track magnetic stereophonic sound. In the 1980s, Dolby Digital and THX systems were installed. This was the first theater in the world to be THX certified. As screen formats widened over the years, so has the screen at the Chinese. From grandeur in the early 1930s, to CinemaScope in the 50s, to Panavision in the 60s, right up to the theater's recent excavation over 30 feet into the earth to create the largest IMAX theater in the world. There has never been a better place to see a movie than right here. Motion pictures have certainly changed dramatically since the Chinese opened its doors in 1927, and today the theater is more than ready to meet any new challenge. The new Chinese is ready to embrace modern movies with a gigantic new IMAX screen, state-of-the-art digital projection and sound, beautifully restored interiors and lighting. All of that ensures the TCL Chinese Theater's position as the premier Hollywood movie palace and guarantees it will continue to thrill visitors for years to come. For TCL Chinese and Turner Classic Movies, I'm Ben Mankiewicz, and I hope you've enjoyed the tour.
So you'll see that the ceiling up there is all hand-painted. It's hand-painted by artists who were suspended on their backs, just like the Sistine Chapel in Rome. The center light up there changes colors if you look at it long enough. And around that centerpiece up there is made of plaster, assembled in 3 pieces, lifted up there to the ceiling. It's meant to look like the sun. And then the IMAX projector's right there in the middle and the bottom. It's an IMAX dual digital laser projection system, which they've updated that for laser projection back in 2017. The current VIP box seat is up there. The stars of today sit. Or they can sit down here in the first row here. It's called the star row. And then up there, that's Sid Grauman's seat, where he would sit as managing director from 1927 until his death in 1950. The far ends up there are just for spotlight. Above the screen up there, that's the Chinese Ambassador of Dramatic Arts by Moon Quan, who was a film director, a poet, and a sculptor. At one time up here, there was a stage, an organ, and an orchestra pit. Now those things have all been removed since 1958. The pipes for the organ are still in the walls and the ceiling here, so the music would come down from the ceiling. And when they had the stage, they used to do what they called the Sid Grauman prologues, which were live sung and dance routines. Those could last for as long as 2 to 3 hours before the film began. The Night of the King of Kings, the first movie shown here, the theme of the prologue that night was Glories of the Scriptures. They also did do the Oscars up there for 3 years, 1944, 1945, and 1946. And so a very famous movie called Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart won its Best Picture award in this room. And when they're not doing a special event like a handprint ceremony or a premiere, they'll show whatever IMAX movie is currently in release. And right now the theater is showing Jungle Cruise. It will function as an ordinary IMAX movie theater on most days. Let's come right this way up here.
Much more to come outside. Thank you for joining us.
You want to go?
Much more to come outside.
There's the earring of Marilyn Monroe. The bottom half is still there. The top half has been broken off. Blonde movie there. Gentlemen prefer blondes. Right over this way here. See the first one. Norma Talmadge here. So she stepped into the wet cement right there. Left the footprint. Sid Grauman saw that. And that's what began the whole tradition of handed footprints out here. The accidental footprints of Norma Talmadge. Since that time, it's been over 300 people. Most recently, Canelo Alvarez, Patrick Stewart, and Keanu Reeves. Just feel free to take pictures out here and look around. Thank you all very much and enjoy your stay in Hollywood. Thank you.
Yun, nagsasabi.